Yes.
Ayleen, thank you so much for coming on the Easy Prey podcast today.
Yes. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me as well.
You're welcome. So you are one of the people from the Tinder Swindler, and the clarity is you are not the swindler.
No,
So,
I'm not.
we're going to talk through the documentary and your experience. Can you give an overview of how the documentary was created and how you became to be involved in it?
Well, Pernilla and Cecily, the two other girls from the documentary, they were already in the media for a while uh, because of the article from VG, the Norwegian paper. It's called The Tinder Swindler as well. And they came across an agent in the USA, and they wanted to make a documentary about it, about the full story. And that's when they contacted me as well to be part of the documentary, because in a way I had a big role in his arrest, but also I swindled the Tinder swindler. So it was a great, great ending for the documentary.
So was it something that you were wanting to do? Kind of what was your underlying reason of why you wanted to participate?
In first, I had to think about it for a few months, and they were contacting me all the time to please participate. And eventually, I choose to participate because I had three goals. I wanted to put his face out there, so everybody knew and know that he is a fraud and that he cannot hurt any more people. I wanted to make the police do something about this case, because he didn't only defraud girls, but also families, men, companies. So I really wanted to show um, the police force that they really need to chase this guy.
Hmm.
And I wanted to help people who are in the same position as I was. And in a way, I took back a bit of strength during the swindle, and I wanted to show to people that yeah, you can take you can take it back and put it in your own hands again, if you stay strong. And that's what I wanted to show to the world as well.
Hmm. So can you give me and the audience an overview of what the swindle was? I know it's a very long story, but the
Yeah.
overview of the story, like how did you? So do you refer to him as Simon or Shimon or either
I
or something
uh
else?
yeah, something else. Because in my eyes he is a person, and he's not like a real proper guy who, yeah, is a very nice guy. So I don't have any bad names for him, but I don't want to call his name because I don't know who he is. And the story is, I met him on Tinder 5 years ago, and in the first few months we had a really nice relationship. We saw each other often. After 7 months, he already tried to tell me that he has enemies because of the job he was doing. He was working for the Leviathan company of his father. It's a diamond company, and in that segment you have a lot of enemies. And after 7 months, he had so many enemies that he needed to lower down himself, to like, um I don't know how you say that, like hide a little
Hmm.
bit. So that's when he started to live with me. And because everything needed to be under the radar for him, so he asked me to use my credit cards and my money. And that's when it all started. And that's when I gave him my money, because I trusted him, of course.
And so prior to that, it's not like did he have a lavish lifestyle before this happened?
Yes, absolutely. We traveled because I was traveling a lot for work. And every time when I was, for example, in Barcelona, he visited me in Barcelona. When I was in London, he visited me in London. When I was in Paris, he visited me in Paris. So in a way, I thought he really cared about me and he really wanted to see me. That's why he traveled to me a lot. And yes, he was living a lavish lifestyle. He was buying a lot of expensive clothes. He was flying private jets. He had a team around him. He always called, and yeah, he was living a lavish lifestyle.
And so that's one of those things to me that like I think of when when a con is happening, if the person doesn't can't back up what they say, so to speak.
Yeah.
That's like, oh yeah, I have this rich lifestyle, but I'm driving a 40-year-old car. That doesn't seem right. But it was kind of all of his story kind of made sense that he would have that he'd have enemies because of the diamond industry. It can't. There's some history there in the diamond industry, and it made sense that he
Yes.
had a fair amount of money if he was in the diamond industry, and that he could fly all over the world doing stuff. So it kind of the story, all kind of his background, kind of made sense, right?
Yes, yes, it all made sense. Also because, like you said, I never saw him driving, for example, a Ford Fiesta. Like it was always expensive cars, Rolls Royces, Ferraris, private jets, luxury travel tickets, for example, for long flights. So yeah, it all backed up wearing Christian Louboutin, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it made sense. Yeah, his story really, um, in a lot of people's eyes, his story was true.
Yeah, all the indications at that point were that it was a true story. So
Yes.
at what point did it turn? You talked about he started saying, oh, I've got to be kind of low profile. I've got to hide and not make my presence known. What happened after that?
Well, he sent me a check to back up the money he loaned from me, and it didn't came through. So I needed to wait and wait and wait, and there was always a problem with receiving the check, and with receiving the money. Sorry. So in a way, when it he always told me like a very believable story, because it was a very big amount. So it was possible that the bank didn't accept it because I was just a regular person in a way. The IRS was holding the money. There were a lot of options he could have told me that made his story more true.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when the money didn't arrive, he sent me another check. So I already waited for over maybe 8, 9 weeks. And during that period, I was just giving him money, yeah, all the time, because I really believed him that the money would arrive and that he really sent it to me. So after that, I also took out personal loans because he always had like this operation going on. He always called it operation. And at a certain point, I think after like a few months, maybe 3 or 4, I figure out that every operation he started, when you have 10 steps, he always came to step 9 and
Mm-hmm.
then everything blew. And I think it was already the 6th operation he started. So it made me a little bit disbelieve because, yeah, I didn't receive the money. He keep on needing it. He keep on pushing me. Every time when he wanted to finish the operation, he came to step 9. So yeah, after a few months, after a while, I really found out that maybe this wasn't really right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah.
So he was having lavish lifestyle, giving you gifts. Did he ever give you any money, or was it just always gifts or travel and things like that?
No, he did give me money in the beginning,
Hmm.
mostly cash. But so, because I was also paying his phone bills, and he always paid them back. So you really believe that he's trustworthy um, to also loan him more money
Hmm.
because I knew he paid me back. So yeah,
Yeah, so it's not like on day one, 30 minutes after you've met him on
no,
Tinder, he's saying, "Give me $10 million," and
no.
it was very, very incremental, and he kind of, I hate to phrase it this way, he kind of proved his trustworthiness with the small things. And so
Yes,
that laid a
absolutely.
foundation of trust.
Yes, and like I said, it took him over 7 months to ask me for money. So in a 7 or 8 month relationship, you are trusting that person. You have a more, um, yeah, you have a very strong connection at that point already. Um, and because the funny thing is, people really think those are the feedback I got from the documentary, that I swiped to the right
Yeah.
on Tinder, and then he asked me maybe 2 days later for 140,000, and yes, of course I gave it. But no, it's completely not the story.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't always believe exactly what you see on TV and what the perceptions of the stories are.
No,
They have
it's
to sell a story, not just a documentary.
yes. And even some comments are also taking their time, because some people take maybe 2 or 3 years to really gain trust.
Hmm.
Others are taking a few weeks, or others taking a few months. They always try to get you at a certain point where, yeah,
It,
where the
it,
trust is born.
it's interesting because it's a lot different than a lot of the online scams, which are, after 2 hours of chatting, I want to marry you, I love you, give me access to your bank account after, after 30 minutes. That this was really a very long, extended process.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And he really made me feel like a princess in the beginning, because he traveled to me. He every time when he said, "No, I really want to see you, so I'm coming to Amsterdam, I'm coming to London for you." So he really makes you feel special. So yeah,
And it wasn't like you were constantly going to where he was, but he was actually going
traveling
different.
to me.
Yeah, and not just saying, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna go. I'll be there," and "Oh gosh, I missed the plane flight," or "My car broke down," or none of that sort of nonsense.
No, he was actually there. He really, yeah, we really met. No, it's because I feel really sorry also for the people who got defrauded by online dating, who never met the
Hmm.
actual person. But in my case, it's a little bit different, because I actually met him for almost 1.5 years. So yes, there is a big difference between so many types of fraud
Yeah,
that are happening in the world. And I feel sorry for everybody who is defrauded, of course.
yeah. It's definitely, well. That's why we're having this conversation, is to hopefully, if we can keep one person from this happening to them, whether it's online fraud or in person con, that's ultimately
Yes,
the goal, is to raise awareness and help prevent this from happening to anyone else.
yes, absolutely. Because it's a traumatic experience, and I know from personal experience. So it's horrible.
So at what point did, having watched some of the Netflix documentary, at what point did it just start to get, um, looking back at it, start to get crazy?
Um, I think I'm sorry, I don't really understand the question. Sorry.
I know at some point he claims to have been assaulted, and that his enemies have now caught up with him,
Yeah.
and it seems to me this is possibly a repeated story. Like, At what point did that? What was that scenario, and at what point did it happen?
With me, it happened after 7 months. I knew him. That's why he needed to stay low, and that's why he moved in with me. But for example, he used that story with Cecily already in March, I believe, of 2018. With me, he told the story in May or June in 2018. And for example, with Pernilla, he told the story in November. So he uses the same story over and over again to make people believe that his real enemies were behind him and that he was caught up and beaten up and his bodyguard got beaten up. So yeah, and then he was asking for money, but then he already got our trust.
Yeah. Did, After his claims of being assaulted and beat up, did he actually show up in person with any injuries, or was it just a photo of injuries?
No, a few, I think 2 days after the incident happened, he had a few cuts on his hand and his face. So it wasn't only the pictures, he actually show up not at my doorstep, but the place where I worked with injuries. So yeah, it made it all so real.
Yeah.
But maybe he did it to himself. I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of scary that if he's repeating this thing multiple times and he's actually showing up with injuries, is he doing this to himself or is he having someone do this to him?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know
So
if any of his team was part of the scam, or like, did you ever meet any of his team?
yes, but in a way, people from which he called his team weren't uh oh God. Um they didn't knew that they were part of the team, like he called them. So um I did met a few people, but they were also victims,
Hmm.
which I found out later. And I think his bodyguard knew a bit more, and also his right hand knew more about this scam because well, not his bodyguard anymore, but his right hand is still with him until today. So he must have knew more.
Yeah, you would think that if the bodyguard or the team members traveled with him at some point, they I'm hearing that he's telling different stories to different people or telling the same story at different times to different people.
Yes, like for example, you can see in the documentary a video he recorded for Sicily. It was in the private plane together with his bodyguard, but he made the same video for me as well, in the same setting, only with a different name. So they must have knew more,
Yeah, yeah.
no more. Yeah,
Maybe not the full extent of it, but they definitely knew he was up to something.
yes, absolutely.
So what, kind of looking back at it, well, actually, let's finish the story. At what point did you decide to, to change and to get out of this situation?
I think after a few months, the story, yeah, was becoming more in disbelief, and at a certain point, I was waiting for him to come to me instead of me giving money to him, and yeah, in February 16th, on February 16th in 2019, the article came out and I was with him, and I told him several times already for a longer period that I couldn't arrange any more money because I was broke. And when I was with him in Prague, he just dropped me off at the airport, and that's when I saw his face on my feed. So thank you so much, Cecilia and Pernilla, for for yeah, just giving me this article, and I don't know why it turned up on my feed. It was very weird, but it was there, and I immediately knew. And that was the moment when, of course, I didn't give him any more money because I knew I got defrauded.
So after that, did he still try to connect with you and try to get more money from you?
Yes, I think that because the article came out on 16th of February,
Hmm.
and I was still in touch with him until June, when he got arrested by Interpol at that point.
So what was his explanation for the article?
It was all fake. The girls, Cecilia and Pernilla, got paid for it by his enemies. Blah blah blah. But yeah, I don't know. It woke me up. Like I always say, it was a wake up call for
Hmm.
me. So, and of course, I immediately trusted the article because there were so many similarities.
Yeah.
It couldn't be any different. It couldn't be that I still trusted him, because that would be weird.
The conspiracy would have to be against him would have to be incredibly good for them to have all this information about him and the similarities in the story and everything that happened.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I didn't believe him anymore, of course. And yeah, that's when my fight started.
So tell us about your fight and what you did.
Well, because I was in such a big debt, I thought I needed some of my money back. And at that point, I was already talking to the police. And I thought, how can I get money back? Because I'm not going to get it from him.
Hmm.
And of course, he was still asking me for money, because he wanted to start a new operation. And I said, well, you have so many expensive clothes and you need to be lay low because of the article, and he really needed to hide. So I said, you can give all the clothes to me and then I will sell it for you and send you the money. So that's when I went to Prague, and he believed me, and he bought me a ticket to Prague, and I picked up 3 big suitcases of 32 kilos per piece. Still don't know how I did it, but I did it because I had a goal, and the only goal I had was to get back home with these suitcases, because I knew then I never had to see him again. So yeah, and then we played girlfriend and boyfriend for almost 1.5, 2 days in Prague, and that's when I traveled back. And yeah.
That must have been satisfying to be able to get his stuff from him.
Yes, absolutely. Because I knew that in a way I paid it all myself. Because I used to work in high-end fashion, and I knew it was latest collection. So, and I gave him so much money, and I knew that it was latest collection. I gave him the money at that time, so he must have bought it from my money.
So did you keep any of it as a souvenir of getting back at him?
Yes, I do have a few a glass, like a sunglass, and um, I have a few other things which I keep as a souvenir, but maybe I can sell it later
What
for even more money if he's behind bars.
that would be
So,
nice.
yeah.
So looking back at it, clearly, like once you saw the article, you're like, okay, I know this guy's a scam. Uh, like looking back before that, were there red flags that you could now look back at and say, oh, I should have seen this, this, and this, or if I had paid more attention to this, it would have been clear to me.
Yes, I think especially about asking me money, he keep on pushing me, pushing me, pushing me, and he didn't give me any time to think rationally.
Hmm.
If I look, um, if I would ask a family member or a friend for money, I would make them think about it for maybe a week or 2 weeks, because that's a normal way to ask someone for money.
Yeah.
But with him, it was different. I remember I found out like some sort of pattern that every time when he needed money, he was love bombing me, like pushing me, but also threatening me.
Hmm.
That, for example, if I didn't give him money, that he would be dead, or that, and it was my fault if he got murdered, or etc. So he always used those type of things against me, like it was my fault
Hmm.
if I didn't give him any money. So yeah, in a way you feel so much pressure, and you also think of your own life, because that's what he also told me, that I was in danger, because he knew, people knew where I live, people knew where I work, people knew my travel from work to home, people knew where my family live. So in a way he was also threatening not only me but also my family, or that people were should have visiting my house if I didn't give him any money. So yeah, and that's when you think like, okay, now it's life or death. So yes, of course I will help you, and because you don't want to see your boyfriend die.
Yeah.
But now I see the patterns, and I should have given myself, if this is for, especially for the listeners, if someone is asking you for money and trying to push you, just take a step back, shut down your phone, and think about it for a few days, because you don't want to be in so much trouble as I was in. So that's, I think, the best advice I can give, because like I just said, in a normal way, if you ask your friends or your family for money, you will give them a week or 2 weeks time
Yeah.
to really think about it. And that's what fraud people don't, because they don't want to give you that time, because they keep on bombing you until you say yes.
It's interesting that he was using both kind of love bombing you and threatening you at the same time. It's very interesting
Yeah.
contradiction in behavior, so to speak.
Yeah, it's something you also see in the documentary, because at a certain point they cut all the voice memos I got from him in the time where he wanted money from the clothes. And in a way, he was very aggressive. He also gave me a lot of threats, but he was also very sweet, because he said, Ayleen, you are the only person who can help me. Please, please, I love you so much. And I know you love me. And when I still say no, then it was like, yeah, but you are screwing up my life and it's
Oh.
your fault. So in a way, you can see like the change of characters as well.
Did that get worse over time in a sense that he got more extreme, both with the affection and with the threats as time went by?
Yes, absolutely. Especially after the time when I got his clothes, but didn't send him any more money. And sometimes it was really funny to also play around a bit, because I remember when I was on the terrace with my friends and it was a very nice weather, and he sended me over 35 messages, but also voice memos of 30 minutes. And I said, okay, look, we're going to play with him. So I just sent something back, and then even the messages got even more and more. Because the reason why, what I found out afterwards, the reason why they are acting in that way is because they are losing control.
Yeah.
And at that point, he didn't had any control over me anymore. So he wanted to get it back, but yeah, he couldn't.
So once he lost control, he just went, I don't want to say crazy, but went over the top.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And it was a very horrible experience, but also a bit funny. Sorry.
I can see
Yeah.
the liberation at the end of being able to do that, and okay, that's who he really is right there.
Yes, it's like, oh, so if I don't give you any more money, now you're acting like this. Thank you.
Like, you know.
Yeah.
So do you know kind of the extent of how many people he swindled and over what period of time?
Well, I think he started this when he was 15 or 16, I think. So he made a lot of victims over the years.
Hmm.
And like I already said before, he didn't, it wasn't only women, it was also men, but also charities, companies. I know that there is a company in the UK. He swindled for over £1 million. So yeah, um, he's a very big scammer, and I think maybe even I'm not going to say it because it will only uh, caress his ego. But yeah, he's very good in hurting people and making people's life miserable.
Do you think that was, that his desire for control was part of what he did, or was it just the money?
um I think the control, um and because I don't know if it really was about the money, because yeah, what he did with it was just spending it on bullshit in a
Hmm.
way. Um, but I think it's more the control and the addiction, because he's not able to, like, for example, work in a restaurant and serving plates, or working in a clothing store, serving customers, and advising. So this is the only thing he's capable of
Hmm.
doing. And he's keep on doing it until he's arrested.
So you think the money that he used to jet set around the world and the lavish lifestyle was effectively money that he had conned from other people that he was then using to support his con against more people?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's like a sort of Ponzi scheme. Yeah.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. And where do you know where he is today?
He's still in Israel, I think, but he's out there and still living his life, unfortunately. But I still believe that karma will get him one day.
Yeah, that things like that usually work out at some point. Do you
Yes,
do you
maybe
know?
it take a while, and I'm not that very good in. I'm not very good in having patience, but um, yeah, once it will. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
no,
will.
these sort of things have a tendency to catch up with people over time.
Yes,
Do you
absolutely.
do you think that the documentary and the articles have helped kind of slow his ability to do what he does?
Yes, absolutely. Because now a lot of people know his face. A lot of people know what he's capable of. But still, he is a very good talker.
Hmm.
So I really guess that he is still making more victims. So yeah, that's why I really wanted to participate in this documentary, because I really think the police should uh, work and put him behind bars where he belongs, by the way.
And I assume uh, the reason why he's not behind bars is because everybody that he swindled voluntarily gave him money,
Um,
or is it just really hard to prove that there was a criminal action?
No, I think there's a lot of proof from people. Like, for example, he sends voice notes, he sends fake checks, he sends a lot of videos about himself. So I think there's a lot of proof, but I also think there are so many victims
Hmm.
that it's lower the case, because yeah, if you need to interview them all,
Yeah, it
could
makes
take a while.
it makes things complicated when you have so many potential people involved in one way or another.
Yes, absolutely. So, yeah.
So how have your interactions with this kind of impacted your life today? Has it made it harder for you to trust people and connect with people?
No, because I still believe that it happened in the past.
Hmm.
And if I still keep on thinking like, oh, I cannot trust him, or I cannot trust her, or I cannot trust him, then it would have made my life even more miserable.
Hmm.
And I think I have experienced the worst of the worst, so it could only get better.
Hmm.
So yeah, I still have trust, and I still have um yeah, believe, and I try not to make this story uh having too much impact on my future.
Hmm. Yeah, it's something that happened in the past, but it doesn't define your future.
No, yeah, that's good. Good saying.
So what advice would you have for other people, whether they're men or women, if they've fallen prey to either an online romance scam or a con man in person, and they're fearful or feeling ashamed about talking about it? What would your advice to them be?
Please never be afraid of talking about it, because if you open up, people understand, people do. And of course, there will be, no, just cut it out, sorry. um, no, please don't be afraid to talk about it, because you will have more support if you talk about it than if you don't talk about it. People know how to react on you um, if you talk about it. And it's also, in a way, therapeutic to talk about it, because, yeah, I know it's a very, very, very big step,
Yeah.
but please do it, because it will only make your life better. And I swear, uh, yeah,
And I
to
think
do
that
it.
I think part of the talking about it is kind of taking back the power, so to speak.
Yes, absolutely. It takes back your power, and uh, put back life in your own hands again, um, and take control as well, because that's the most important thing. You really need to take control uh, on your own life again after this happened to you. And I know, again, it's a very big step, but please
Hmm.
take it, because it's the best step you can ever take.
That's great. If we can edit this out if you want to. Um, if people want to get a hold of you or contact you, are you open to being other people to if someone else has been in the same situation, or is there anything that you can do to help them? Is that something that you do?
Yes, absolutely. People are sharing their stories a lot on my Instagram, and I don't always have time to respond, but I try to. So yeah, that's something yeah, I am open to, absolutely, because
Awesome.
because I think it's important to help each other as well.
Yeah, I think that there needs to be a place where people can go and I don't not necessarily commiserate, but not feel judged, and to be able to
Yes,
say, have someone say, yeah, I know what you feel. I felt the same thing, and you'll get through it.
yes, absolutely.
All right, Eileen, thank you so much for sharing your story. I really appreciate you taking time to share your story with our audience.
Yes, thank you so much for having me again. And yeah, I hope we can just help a few people more into these type of situations.
I'm sure it will help. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much.